Live from the BDN Studios, it's Bang and Dang.
That's awesome.
If you don't like that, then
You ain't black.
Welcome back to Outlaws, Gunslingers, with your host Bang and Dang. It's the first Tuesday of the month, and what you know that means, we are on to the Mafia, which means also we are on to a brand new family. The fourth of the five families that we've covered so far. We're starting with the Lucchese family in this edition, so look forward to the next 6, 7, 8, 9 months of all Lucchese-ness. Got some Lucchese-ness. You guys might know these guys, the most famous members, not even members, they were only associates, but old Henry Hill and all those guys for the basis of Goodfellas. It was the Lucchese's, so some interesting stuff, just like we do all the other times. We're going to go through the family history from its beginning to the end before we start next month with going member by member. The members of other crime families supposedly refer to these guys as Lukes for the old Lucchese's, the Lukes. The early history of this Lucchese crime family can be traced back to the Morello crime family, which was based in East Harlem in the Bronx. During the 1910s, the bosses of the Morello family lost power and control, which allowed Gaetano Tommy Reyna, along with Salvatore D'Aquila and Joe Masseria, to split off and form their own crime families. The Morello family then lost more control of the Mafia during the Mafia Camorra War, which we covered, as many top leaders were imprisoned and moided.
By 1920, Reyna, he ruled as boss of his own crime family, controlling criminal operations in the Bronx and part of East Harlem. Reyna's crime family held a monopoly over the ice box distribution in the Bronx. 1920.
Icebox, you know how long, it was back in the day of the icebox distribution.
Right. In the year 1920, with Prohibition getting passed, Reyna's wealth and power grew as he aligned himself with Joseph Masseria.
Ooh, that's a bad move.
Masseria became the most powerful Italian-American crime boss in New York City. 1930, the Castellamarese War began as Masseria. He fought with rival Sicilian boss Salvatore Maranzano. You guys all remember that. At this very point, Masseria, he started demanding a share of Reyna's criminal profits, prompting Reyna to consider changing allegiances to Maranzano. When Masseria, he learned of Reyna's possible betrayal, he plotted with Reyna's lieutenant Tommy Gagliano to have him murdered.
February 26, 1930, a gunman suspected to be Vito Genovese or Joseph Pinzolo murdered Reyna outside his aunt's apartment. With Reyna dead, Masseria bypassed Gagliano, who expected to take control of the Reyna family, and installed his underling Joseph Pinzolo, a.k.a. Fat Joe, as boss. Furious with this betrayal, Gagliano and Tommy Lucchese secretly defected to Maranzano. In September 1930, Lucchese lured Pinzolo to a Manhattan office building where Pinzolo was killed. Jeez. This allowed Gagliano to take control of the Reyna family. Oh, wow. Months later, on April 15, 1931, Masseria was murdered, ending the war. Partly because of old Lucky Luciano as well.
Right. After the murder of Masseria, a mafia meeting was hosted by Maranzano, and he proclaimed himself the new Capo dei Tutti Capi, the boss of all bosses. We've said that many times on this show. And that was for the American Mafia, because
obviously
they weren't going to mess with the Sicilian guys, murder them. Maranzano outlined a peace plan to all the Sicilian and Italian Mafia leaders in the United States. There would be 24 organizations to be known as families throughout the country, who would then elect their own bosses. Maranzano also reorganized all the Italian-American gangs in New York City into 5 families, to be headed by Lucky Luciano, Vincent Mangano, Joseph Afesi, Gagliano, and of course himself as the boss of all bosses.
I don't know, Gagliano was awarded the old Reyna organization with Lucchese as his underboss. However, Luciano and other mob members were not willing to serve under Maranzano because they figured, oh, he's going back to the old-timer ways. Right. We don't want that.
What they call him?
The Mustache Pete. Mustache Pete's. When Maranzano learned about Luciano's disaffection, he hired a gunman to kill him. However, September 1931, Luciano struck first when several Jewish assassins provided by Luciano associate Meyer Lansky murdered Maranzano in his office. Luciano, now the most powerful mobster in the world, pretty much.
Pretty much. Well, with that new power, Luciano kept the family structure as created by Maranzano, but he removed the boss of bosses in favor of a ruling body called, you guessed it, the Commission. The commission's responsibility was to regulate the family's affairs and to resolve all differences between the families. Cordially.
But everybody knew that Lucky was
Right.
the man.
The very first commission members included Luciano, Gagliano, Bonanno, Profesi, Mangano, Chicago outfit boss Al Capone, and Buffalo family boss Stefano Magaddino, with Luciano as the chairman. Although the commission was technically a democratic institution, it was actually controlled by Luciano and his allies.
Yeah, during the 30s and 40s, Gagliano and Lucchese led their family into profitable areas of the trucking and clothing industries.
Yep.
When Luciano was sent to prison for pandering in 1936, a rival alliance took control of the commission. The alliance of Mangano, Bonanno, Magaddino, and Profesi used their power to control the crime of organization in America. Understanding his vulnerability, Gagliano was careful to avoid opposing this new alliance.
Damn right he was, son of a bitch. Well, he was a very quiet man who avoided the media and he stayed off the streets. He preferred to pass his orders through family, through Lucchese, and a few other close allies. In contrast, Lucchese was the public face of the family who carried out Gagliano's orders. By the year of 1946, Lucchese attended a Cosa Nostra Havana conference in Cuba. We all did that. On behalf of Gagliano.
I went there. I was there.
Oh, Gagliano, he kept such a low profile that virtually nothing is known about his activities from the year of 1932 until he retired or died between the year of 1951 and 1953.
Awesome. Can't wait to do his story.
Right.
After his death or retirement, Lucchese became boss and appointed Vincenzo Rail as his concierge and Stefano Lascelle as his underboss. Lucchese then continued Gagliano's policies, making the now Lucchese family one of the most profitable in New York. Lucchese established control over Teamsters Union locos, workers' cooperatives, and trade associations, plus rackets at the new Idlewild Airport.
Sure did.
Lucchese also expanded family rackets in Manhattan's Garment District and in related trucking industry activities around New York.
Get it done, buddy. Well, he also built close relations with many powerful New York politicians, including mayors William O'Dwyer and Vincent M. Pelletieri, and also members of the judiciary who aided the family on numerous occasions. Throughout his regime, Lucchese kept a low profile and saw to it that his men were well taken care of. There in the 50s, Lucchese controlled a narcotic trafficking network with Santo Trafficante Jr.
Oh, hey, is that a coincidence? A trafficking network with a guy named Trafficante?
Right, which he was the boss of the Tampa crime family. Trafficante Jr. would frequently meet with Lucchese in New York City for dinner.
Awesome.
Right, good for him.
Well, when Lucchese became boss, he helped Vito Genovese and Carlo Gambino in their fights to take control of their families. The three plotted to take over the Mafia Commission by murdering family bosses Frank Costello and Albert Anastasia.
Oh, bastards.
Well, indeed, May 2nd, 1957, Costello survived an assassination attempt, and he decided to retire as boss in favor of Genovese. Then, October 25th, 1957, the Gallo brothers from the Colombo family murdered Anastasia, which allowed Gambino to become boss of those. Wow, so now we got the Gambino family and the Genovese family.
Here we go. Lucchese and Gambino then started conspiring to remove their former ally, Genovese.
Dude.
This is crazy time, yeah. After the disastrous 1957 Appalachian meeting of mob leaders in upstate New York, Genovese, he lost a great deal of respect in the commission. 1959, the assistants of Luciano, Costello, and Meyer Lansky, Genovese, arrested on drug charges.
Was
Gambino and Lucchese assumed full control of the Mafia Commission. 1960, they backed the Gallo Bros in their rebellion against Profesi family boss, Joe Profesi. Gambino and Lucchese saw the war as a way to take over rackets from the distracted Profesis. I mean, you can't be distracted.
right. After uncovering a plot by Joseph Bonanno to assassinate them, Lucchese and Gambino used the commission to strip Bonanno of his role as boss. This power play started a war within the Bonanno family and served to strengthen both the Lucchese and Gambino families, which was referred to as the Banana War. In 1962, Gambino's oldest son Thomas married Lucchese's daughter Frances, strengthening the Gambino-Lucchese alliance. Lucchese led a quiet, stable life until his death from a brain tumor, July 13, 1967. At the time of his death, he had not spent one day in jail in his 44 years in the Mafia.
Look at that. That don't happen very often.
Right.
Good for you, guy. Well, he left his family in a very powerful position in New York City. Lucchese family had a stronghold in East Harlem and the Bronx. Consisted of about 200 made members. Damn. Lucchese intended for longtime capo Anthony Corello to succeed him. Well, however, since he was in prison at the time, he named another longtime capo, Carmine Tramonti, as acting boss until Corallo's release.
Okay. Around the time of his appointment as temporary boss, Carmine Tramonti, they call him Mr. Gribbs, he was in ill health.
Jeez.
With boss-in-waiting Anthony Corallo, they called him Tony Ducks. In prison, Tramonti was expected to hold power until Corallo's release. Tramonti faced a number of criminal charges during his time as acting boss, and he was eventually convicted of financing a large heroin smuggling operation, which was the infamous French Connection.
Yeah.
This scheme was responsible for distributing millions of dollars in heroin along the East Coast during the early 70s. Before the French Connection trial, the seized heroin was stored in the NYPD property / evidence storage room pending trial.
Uh-oh.
But
well, in his scheme, criminals stole hundreds of kilograms of heroin worth $70 million from the room and replaced them with bags of flour.
jeez.
Officers discovered the theft when they noticed insects eating the so-called heroin. They're like, oh, that ain't right.
Oh, shit.
The scope and depth of this scheme is still unknown, but officials suspect the thieves had assistance from corrupt NYPD officers, obviously.
That they did.
Certain plotters received jail sentences, including Vincent Papa, later assassinated while in prison in Atlanta, Georgia. You had Virgil Alessi and Anthony Laria. 1974, after Tramonti's incarceration, Corallo finally took charge of the family.
Okay. After Tramonti's incarceration in 74, Corallo came from the Harlem faction of the family, known as Tony Ducks from his ease at ducking criminal convictions. Corallo was a boss squarely in Lucchese's mold. Corallo had been heavily involved in labor racketeering and worked closely with Jimmy Hoffa, who was the Teamsters president during the 40s and 50s.
Yeah.
Corallo also enjoyed close ties to the Painters and Decorators Union. He's an interior decorator.
All right.
The Conduit Workers Union and the United Textile Workers Union. Jeez, they just infiltrated all the unions.
Right. Corallo appointed Salvatore Santoro, they call him Tom Mix, as the underboss and the supervisor of all labor and construction racketeering operations in New York. And he also appointed Christopher Fornari, they call him Christy Tick, as the reputed concierge. The family prospered under Corallo's leadership, particularly in narcotics, labor racketeering, and major illegal gambling. Corallo, he never discussed business during sit-downs, fearing that the FBI was monitoring the conversations. Gotti should have learned from this guy. Instead, he used the car phone and the Jaguar owned by his bodyguard and chauffeurs.
Pretty sure they ended up bugging that.
Probably.
Corallo was driven around New York while on the phone discussing business. Salvatore Avellino, a.k.a. Sal, and Agnello Neo Migliori shifted as Corallo chauffeurs during the 70s and 80s.
Agnello.
Corallo, a huge fan of the New Jersey faction of the family, reputedly inducted and promoted Anthony Tumac Asaturo and Michael Magdog Tessetta into the organization and put them in charge of the New Jersey crew.
Fantastic.
Which reportedly controlled most of the loan sharking and illegal gambling operations in Newark at the time.
Look at that shit. Early 80s, FBI finally managed to plant a bug in that Jaguar.
Yep.
The FBI recorded Corallo speaking at great length about mob affairs, including illegal gambling, labor racketeering, drug racketeering, and also murder. Corallo, he was arrested and put on trial along with all the heads of the 5 families at that time. This trial became known as the Mafia Commission Trial. December 16th, 1985, Gambino crime family boss Paul Castellano murdered without commission approval. Genovese and Lucchese family teamed up and plotted John Gotti's murder too. But the alliance had Gambino's underboss Frank DeCicco murdered but failed in his attempt to kill Gotti. Oh, shit.
Yeah, Corallo, Santoro, and Fornari were indicted in the Mafia Commission trial in 1986. As the trial wore on, Corallo realized the entire Lucchese hierarchy was about to be decimated. Not only was it all but certain that he, Santoro, and Fornari would be convicted, but they faced sentences that, are at their ages, were all sure they would die in prison.
Dang.
In the fall of 1986, Corallo chose Anthony Luongo, they called him Buddy, as acting boss. However, Luongo disappeared mysteriously in 1986. Oh, jeez.
Wow. Corallo's ultimate choice was Vittorio Amizo, they call him Vic, the capo of the Fornari's old crew. Allegedly, both Amizo and another longtime protege of Fornari's, Anthony Gaspipe Casso, they were candidates for the job as well. Evidence suggests that Corallo wanted Casso, but Casso convinced him to select Amizo. Amizo officially became boss in January of 1987 when Corallo, Santoro, and Fornari were all sentenced to 100 years in prison. Damn. Amizo made Casso his underboss in 1989, allowing him to exert great influence over family decisions. Corallo and Santoro, they died in prison in the year 2000. While Fenari, he was released in 2014.
Look at that guy.
Damn, how the hell 100 years?
Jeez. During the late 80s, the Lucchese family underwent a period of great turmoil. Vittorio Vicamuzzo and his fierce underboss, Casso, first members of the family's Brooklyn wing to head the family, instituted one of the most violent reigns in American mafia history. Both men were heavily involved in labor racketeering, extortion, and drug trafficking, and both had committed many murders. Amuzzo and Casso were strong rivals of the Gambino crime family boss John Gotti, plus strong allies of the Genovese crime family boss Vincent the Chin Gingante.
They made their reputations earlier in 1986. Angry over the murder of Gambino boss Paul Castellano, Corello and Gigante conspired to murder Gotti. Corello gave the contract to Amuzzo and Casso. 13th of April, 1986. Car bombing killed Gambino underboss Frank DeChico. But guess what? Didn't get Gotti. This assassination attempt sparked a long and confusing tension between these three crime families, with many deaths reported on all sides.
During the late 80s, Amuzzo began demanding 50% of the profits generated by the Jersey crew.
Damn.
New Jersey leaders Anthony Aceturo and Michael Tessetta refused Amuzzo's demand. In retaliation, Amuzzo and Casso ordered the entire Jersey crew killed in the now infamous Whack Jersey order. He summoned them to a meeting in Brooklyn. Fearful for their lives, all the Jersey crew members skipped the meeting and went into hiding. Tessetta and Aceturo were later put on trial in 1990.
Look at those guys. Just said, we ain't going to that meeting. Both Amuzzo and Casso were implicated in a case involving the fitting of thousands of windows in New York at inflated prices. And the pair went into hiding that very same year, naming Alphonse D'Arco as acting boss. They call him Little L. For the next few years, Amuzzo, Casso ruled the family from afar and ordered the execution of anyone they deemed troublesome, typically because they were considered rivals or potential informants. All this convinced many Lucchese wise guys that Amuzzo and Casso were no longer acting or thinking rationally. They're like, these guys ain't rationally.
Well, what followed next was a series of botched hits on family members suspected of being informants. Ironically, these hits caused several family members to actually turn informer. Amuzzo ordered the slaying of Capo Peter Fat Pete Chiodo, who, along with Casso, was in charge of the Windows case operation. He was shot 12 times, but still survived. After Amuzzo ordered hits on Chiodo's wife and sister in violation of long-standing rules against women being harmed, Chiodo turned state's evidence and provided the entire Windows operation that eventually controlled $150 million in window replacements sold in New York. As Amuzzo also sanctioned the hit on Anthony Aceturo, who was on trial in 1990, he also cooperated with the government. See, why would you try to take out their wife and daughter?
Right. The planned executions went as high as acting boss D'Arco. Furious over the failed hit on Chiodo, Amuzzo set up D'Arco to be killed at a Manhattan hotel. However, this hit also came undone after D'Arco saw a man hide a gun in his shirt and then slip it into the bathroom. Recognizing this as a classic setup for a hit, D'Arco fled for his life and turned himself over to authorities to spare him and his family from Amuzzo and Casso and their increasingly erratic demands. He was the first boss of a New York crime family, acting or otherwise, to become an informant.
Casso had reportedly conspired with reputed concierge Frank Lastorino and Brooklyn faction leaders George Zappola, George Conte, Frank Bones Papagni, and Frank Gioia Jr. into murdering Stephen Crea, who was Amuzzo's acting underboss of the Bronx, as well as Gambino crime family acting boss John Gotti, son of the imprisoned John Gotti Jr., along with members of the Genovese crime family once again. But due to massive indictments, none of the plots were committed.
Law enforcement eventually caught up with the two. July 29, 1991, FBI captured Amuzzo in Scranton, Pennsylvania. 19th of January 1993, FBI captured Casso in Mount Olive, New Jersey. Amuzzo steadfastly refused all offers from the government to make a deal and become a government witness. He was convicted on all charges in 1992 and sentenced to life. Believing that Casso had tipped off the FBI in hopes of taking over the family, Amuzzo removed Casso as underboss and declared him an outcast. Oh, wow.
Facing the prospect of spending the rest of his life in prison, Casso agreed to a deal on March 1st, 1994, and started revealing the secrets.
Oh, shit.
One of the biggest secrets was that two New York Police Department detectives, Louis Eppolito and Stephen Caracappa, had been on Casso's payroll. For years, Eppolito and Caracappa had provided Casso with sensitive police information. Casso had even used them on hits. Oh, jeez. Casso related how Ippolito and Caracappa on Christmas Day 1986 murdered an innocent Brooklyn man who had the same name as a suspected government informant.
Oh, shit.
Oh, shit.
Can't be doing that.
Wow.
Casso told the government in that 1992 Lucchese hitman tried to kill the sister of another suspected informant, violating the alleged mafia rule barring violence against family members. Casso was thrown out of the witness protection program in 1998 after prosecutors alleged numerous infractions.
Dude was probably still drugging and all that shit.
Right, in 1997, including bribing guards, assaulting the other inmates, and making false statements about Sammy the Bull Gravano and DeArco. Casso's attorney tried to get Judge Frederick Block to overrule federal prosecutors in July of 1998, but Block refused to do so. Shortly afterward, Judge Block, he sentenced Casso to 455 years in prison without parole, the maximum sentence permitted under sentencing guidelines. 15th December 2020, Casso dead in prison, complications related to previous health issues.
Well, going back to these two NYPD officers, between 1986 and 90, Ippolito and Caracappa participated in 8 murders, received $375,000 from Casso in bribes and payments for murder contract. Casso and Caracappa and Ippolito, Casso used those two to pressure the Gambino crime family by murdering several of their members as well. This is because Casso, along with the imprisoned Amuso and Genovese crime family boss Vincent Gigante, they wanted their rival John Gotti out of the way. Caracappa and Ippolito are now seen as the main source of tension between these three families during the late 80s and 90s. I would assume.
Makes sense for one contract. Ippolito and Caracappa kidnapped mobster James Heidel, forced him into their car trunk, delivered him to Casso for torture in Moida. Heidel's body never found. He's probably sitting next to Hoffa. The two detectives also shot Bruno Faccioli, who was found in Brooklyn in the trunk of a car with a canary in his mouth. Ooh, singing like a canary, huh? After pulling Gambino crime family Captain Edward Eddie Lino for a routine traffic check, the detectives murdered him on the expressway in his Mercedes. April 2006, Ippolito Caracappa, convicted of murdering Heidel, Nicholas Guido, John Heidel, which is Otto, John Doe, Anthony DeLapi, Faccioli, Lino, Bartholomew Borello. These were from orders from Casso and the Lucchese family. They were sentenced to life in prison.
Jeez. Well, they get away with shooting somebody in his car.
Right.
On the fucking expressway. While in prison, Amuso was able to regain control of the family after Casso was in prison. Amuso chose Joseph Little Joe DeFede to become his new acting boss. DeFede, who supervised the powerful garment district racket, reportedly earned more than $40,000 to $60,000 a month. That's it. DeFede placed Stephen Crea in charge of the family's labor and construction racketeering operations.
Oh.
Crea increased the Lucchese family earnings from these rackets between $300,000 and $500,000
Whoa.
and $500,000 a year.
Damn fantastic. Throughout the mid-90s, Amuso maintained control of the family from prison with his two allies, DeFede and Crea. They ran the rackets. 1998, U.S. law enforcement kept pressuring the organized crime activities in New York. DeFede, arrested, indicted, 9 counts of racketeering. Pled guilty to the charges, sentenced to 5 years in prison. Amuso, he was angered that he pled guilty and promoted Crea as the new acting boss. Said DeFede,
Well, Stevie Crea's success with the labor and construction rackets convinced Amuso that DeFede had been previously skimming off these profits. Late 99, Amuso placed a contract on DeFede's life. September 6, 2000, Crea and 7 other Lucchese members were arrested and jailed on extortion charges, mostly to the supervising of the construction sites with various capos Dominic Truscalo and Joseph Tangora. After Crea's imprisonment, the concierge Lou Bagels Dadone took control of the family.
Louis Bagels, huh? However, Dadone's tenure was short-lived. After his release from prison, the scared DeFede became a government witness and helped the government convict Dadone of Moida and conspiracy.
Wow.
His conviction also helped by the testimony from Alphonse DeArco in September 2004.
Well, with the arrest of the acting boss Dadone in 2003, imprisoned boss Vic Amuso created a 3-man ruling panel to run the family. This panel consisted of Agnello Migliore, Joseph DiNapoli, and Matthew Madonna, who brought the family's power back into the Bronx. February 2004, a New York Post article stated that the Lucchese family consisted of about 9 capos and 82 soldiers. March 2009, an article in the New York Post stated that the Lucchese family consisted of approximately 100 main members. All right.
18th of December 2007, 2 members of the panel, Joseph DiNapoli and Matthew Madonna, arrested, along with New Jersey faction capo Ralph Perna, soldier Nicodemo Scarfo Jr., and others. The arrests came after New Jersey law enforcement agencies revealed through investigation of Operation Heat that the New Jersey faction controlled $2.2 billion worth of illegal gambling, money laundering, and racketeering based in New Jersey and Costa Rica.
October 1st, 2009, the Lucchese family was hit with 2 separate indictments charging 49 members and associates with bribery and racketeering. In the first indictment, 29 members and associates of the Lucchese family were arrested. The indictment charged Joseph DiNapoli, Matthew Madonna, and acting capo Anthony Croce with running operations that grossed nearly $400 million from illegal gambling, loan sharking, gun trafficking, bribery, and extortion.
The second indictment obtained from investigation Operation Open House, 12 more Lucchese mobsters charged with bribery. The indictment charged acting capo Andrew DeSimone and other mobsters with bribing New York Police Department detective and sergeant posing as crooked cops to protect illegal poker parlors. 18th of November 2009, family members indicted under Operation Night Gallery. Capo Anthony Croce, soldier Joseph Ditello, and his brother Frank Ditello. They were charged with loan sharking, bookmaking from the bar Night Gallery on Staten Island.
After the ruling panel was disbanded in 2009, Matthew Madonna took over as the acting boss, and Joseph DiNapoli became the new concierge. Late 2009, the parole restrictions expired on longtime underboss Stephen Crea, and he was able to rejoin the family's leadership again. Oh, look at that. January 16, 2013, the FBI arrested 29 more members and associates of the Genovese, Lucchese, and Gambino crime families on, racketeering, and that related to their involvement in carting companies in Westchester County, Rockland County, and Nassau County, New York, plus Bergen County and Passaic County in New Jersey.
Oh, fantastic. Look at that shit. Members and associates of the Genovese, Lucchese, and Gambino families controlled waste disposal businesses by dictating which companies could pick up trash at certain locations and extorting protection payments, preventing further extortion from other mobsters. June 2013, New York FBI office reduced the number of agents focused on investigating the 5 crime families to 36 agents, divided into 2 squads. In the past, the FBI had separate squad of 10 to 20 agents investigating each crime family.
Each family.
Damn.
Wow. Currently, the FBI has Squad C5, which at one time solely investigated the Genovese family, but will now also be investigating the Bonanno and Colombo families, and Squad C16, which previously investigated just the Gambino family. It will now be investigating the Lucchese family as well.
Oh, fantastic.
May 31st, 2017, 19 members and associates of the Lucchese crime family were indeed indicted and charged by the FBI and NYPD with racketeering, assault, attempted murder, armed robbery, murder, firearms, fraud, witness tampering, money laundering, illegal gambling, narcotics, and contraband cigarettes trafficking offenses, which dated back to at least the year 2000.
Oh, shit. Damn. Members of Lucchese leadership, Matthew Madonna, Stephen Crea, Joseph DiNapoli, they were among the accused. Lucchese associate Terrence Caldwell and soldier Christopher Londonio, they were accused of participating in the shooting and murder of Michael Meldish, which was a former leader of the East Harlem Purple Gang, and Lucchese Bronx-based hitman, and that happened on the 15th of November, 2013. Caldwell, already in custody for the May 29, 2013 attempted murder of Bonanno crime family soldier Enzo Stagno. He was shot in the chest in East Harlem.
Late 2012, Crea ordered Vincent Bruno and soldier Paul Casano to murder a Bonanno associate who disrespected him. The 2 men went to his home with guns, but the contract was not carried out. According to the FBI, Crea gave his approval in October 2016 to soldier Joseph Ditello to murder an informant in New Hampshire, but he was unsuccessful in finding the informer. Ditello himself was accused of operating a drug smuggling ring from South America into the United States with other Lucchese mobsters with 5 kilos of cocaine, more than 1 kilo of heroin, and over 1,000 kilos of marijuana allegedly brought into the country.
Crea, he was personally charged with mail and wire fraud in connection with a skimming operation involving construction of a New York City hospital. Originally, all but 2 of the defendants faced the death penalty or life in prison. However, May 2018, United States Attorney's Office announced that
mail and wire fraud got death penalty?
Oh, that's crazy. The United States Attorney's Office announced that they would not even seek the death penalty for Crea, Madonna, Londonio, Stephen Crea Jr., and Caldwell. They're like, nah, you guys. Oh, look at that. So no more death penalty, huh?
January 4th, 2019, Joseph Ditello was He received a 14-year prison sentence after pleading guilty to conspiracy to commit racketeering, including the attempted murder of the witness, narcotics trafficking, and collecting debts through the threat of violence September 24, 2018. August 20th, 2019, Stephen Crea Jr. pleaded guilty to racketeering and murder conspiracy charges and was later sentenced to 13 years in prison.
15th of November 2019, Matthew Madonna, Steve Cray, Christopher Londonio, Terrence Caldwell, convicted in White Plains Federal Court of murdering Michael Meldish. 27th of July 2020, Madonna, Londonio, Caldwell, sentenced to life. 27th of August 2020, Crea sentenced to life, along with $400,000 fine and a forfeit of $1 million.
Well, although in prison for life, Victor Amuso remains the official boss of the Lucchese crime family. March 27, 2018, Lucchese crime family soldier Dominic Capelli and 9 associates were arrested as part of Operation The Vig Is Up. Attorney General Eric Schneiderman announced that it was the biggest loan sharking case investigated by the United States Attorney General Office. Over 47 people were identified as loan sharking victims who were allegedly charged exorbitant weekly loan rates, averaging about 200% per year, effectively creating a high-cost debt trap for all individuals taking out such loans.
The accused were alleged to have operated out of New Rochelle, New York, and the Bronx. It is also said that defendants ran an illegal bookmaking operation, which generated $1.5 million in annual wages. In a separate indictment of April 2018, Lucchese soldier Anthony Grotto and associate Lawrence Fat Larry Trinisi, they were arrested for forcing a doctor to prescribe them with over 230,000 oxycodone pills from 2011 to 2013. It was noted that Grotto ordered one of his peers to stab the unidentified Brooklyn-based doctor during a visit, who complied with that very task.
Well, Grotto was recorded threatening the doctor, saying, "If the prescriptions go in anybody's hands besides mine, I'll put a bullet right in your head." Both men pleaded guilty April 5, 2018. The investigation was conducted by wiretaps, surveillance cameras, car bugs, undercover officers, hidden cameras, and cost over $1 million. Grotto was then sentenced to 12 years in prison and Trinisi to 3 years.
October 2018, associate Vincent Zito was murdered at his home in Sheepshead Bay, Brooklyn. He was found shot twice in the back of his head, and a handgun was recovered beside his body. He was allegedly a loan shark. His brother Anthony Zito was jailed for extortion in 1971 and was a known associate of current Lucchese boss Vic Amuso. May 2019, government witness and former Lucchese soldier John Panizzi testified in trial against Eugene Castell and revealed that the current leadership of the crime family. He's like, check these guys out. These guys are leading this.
Well, he testified that in 2017, imprisoned for life, boss Vic Amuso sent a letter to underboss Stephen Crea, which stated that Brooklyn-based mobster Michael Big Mike DeSantis would take over as acting boss, replacing Bronx-based Matthew Madonna. The testimony from Panizzi stated that the Bronx faction refused to step aside. Amuso had approved of a hit list that included a captain and several members of that Bronx faction.
During Panizzi's testimony, he revealed that the Lucchese family operates with a total of 7 crews, 2 in the Bronx, 2 on Long Island, 1 in Manhattan, and 1 in New Jersey. And John Castellucci's Brooklyn's crew, formerly Amuso and Castle's old crew, which is now based in Tottenville section of Staten Island as well. Law enforcement agents have stated that Brooklyn-based mobster Patrick Delarusso, they call him Patty, is now the new acting underboss, and that the Bronx-based mobster Andrew De Simone is the new concierge.
December 16, 2020, soldier John Perna pled guilty to aggravated assault of the husband of Dina Canton, who had appeared on Real Housewives of New Jersey. Perna was hired by Thomas Manzo, who was the ex-husband of Canton, and Perna carried out the assault in exchange for a discounted price for his wedding reception.
Fantastic.
September 13, 2022, 5 Lucchese members and associates were indicted and accused of running an extensive and long-running illegal gambling operation. But the mob's dead, remember?
Right. Arrested for the scheme was family soldier Anthony Villani and associates James Comatosis, they call him Quick, Dennis Filizola, Michael Platinum Prano, and Louis Tucci. He's a junior. The 5 men faced charges including racketeering, money laundering, legal gambling, and attempted extortion. The Lucchese family used members to take control of various unions in the United States. Of course they did.
The members extorted money from the unions by blackmail, strong-arming, violence, and other methods. Similar to the other 4 crime families in New York, they worked on controlling entire unions. With the mob having control over a union, they controlled the entire market. Bid rigging allows the mob to get a percentage of the income on the construction deal, only allowing certain companies to bid on jobs after they pay them first. Yeah.
Oh. Okay, the mob also allows companies to use non-union workers to work on jobs, in which case the companies must give a kickback to the mob. Unions give mob members jobs on the books to show a legitimate source of income. The mafia members get into high union positions and embezzling money from the organization. Clothes manufacturing in the garment district of Manhattan, the Union of Needle Trades, Industrial, and Textile Employees Locals 10, 23, 24, and 25 that were controlled by members of the Lucchese family. Lucchese associates would extort the businesses and organize strikes. Today, some unions still are working for that very same family. Of course they are.
Well, if you know that, then why are you letting them? They got some kosher meat companies as well. In the early 60s, Giovanni Diagardi, they call him Johnny Dio, merged Consumer Kosher Provisions Company and American Kosher Provisions, Inc. Dio was able to control a large portion of the kosher food market, forcing supermarkets to buy from his company at his prices. At the Hunts Point Cooperative Market in the Hunts Point section of the Bronx, the Lucchese family controlled unions involved in the food distribution industry as well.
Take a look at the airport services and freight handling. JFK International Airport, LaGuardia, and New York Liberty. The unions were controlled by the Lucchese family. Construction business, Teamsters unions in New York City and New Jersey have been under Lucchese family control for years. Mason Tenders locals 46, 48, and 66 were controlled by the old Vario crew.
And they are also involved in the newspaper production and delivery business.
Yeah, makes sense.
In November 2009, Manhattan District Attorney Robert Morgenthau sent search warrants to investigate the newspaper and mail deliverers union. This union controlled circulation, production, and delivery offices at the New York Times, the New York Post, the New York Daily News, and El Diario La Prensa. Wow, really? When the Casa Nostra took control over the union, the price and cost for newspapers increased.
Clearly. Wow. Charges were brought against many union members, as well as the former union president Douglas LeChance, who was accused of being a Lucchese crime family associate. 1980s, LeChance was convicted on labor racketeering charges and served 5 years in prison. He was also involved in the Manhattan 1990s case in which the New York Post was being strong-armed into switching their delivery companies, but he was acquitted.
Yep.
And that's the overview of the old Lucchese crime family, one of the oldest in the books.
Yeah, and like you guys already know, we'll go over member by member. Bosses, underbosses, concierges, anybody that's notable, as well as, like I said, the famous Henry Hill, Jimmy Burke, Tommy DeSimone, known in the movie Goodfellas as Tommy Vercetti or something. We'll probably maybe even have an extra episode on the Lufthansa heist and the Air France robbery, which all those three were involved in. You guys know them from the Goodfellas. Plus, we'll have a bunch of more people like Gaetano Reyna. Hopefully, they said that he wasn't very active. Lucchese himself, obviously, and all the other bosses and underbosses you heard in this episode, plus a lot more. So look forward to the next 8-9 months of the Lucchese stuff. So we'll be back next week for wrapping up almost a couple more episodes on the Hells Angels. We'll be taking a look at the Quebec Biker War for the Hells Angels, and then we'll be back with another remastered episode the week after that. So we got lots of stuff going on and working our way to Christmas on the Outlaws and Gunslingers. So join us next week for some Hells Angels actions in Quebec. We'll see you then, Mouth Michigan, as we...